When we talk about the secrets to maintaining a long-lasting relationship, most people might first think of better communication skills, greater tolerance, or learning how to compromise. However, the book Hold Me Tight offers a counterintuitive perspective. The true key to a stable and enduring relationship isn't found in improved techniques, but in emotional safety. In other words, more important than learning how to argue better is letting your partner know, "I'm here, and I won't leave you." This emotional stability, the secure bond, is the foundation of every relationship. In real life, many couples fall into repetitive conflict cycles. Although the topics of their arguments may vary, the core emotions remain the same: disappointment, loneliness, and feeling misunderstood. Whether it's passionate lovers, couples married for decades, or even those struggling to let go after a breakup, many have experienced this painful process of repeated arguments leading to emotional distance. This doesn't mean they aren't trying hard enough. It's often because they haven't addressed the real root of their emotional needs. No matter how much they talk or try to change, they feel stuck in place. That's one reason why attachment theory has gained increasing attention in recent years. Originally developed to explain the emotional bonds between children and caregivers, psychologists later discovered that adult romantic relationships are built on similar attachment needs. We all long for someone we can rely on, someone who will be there to comfort and support us when we feel threatened or hurt. This emotional foundation is far more crucial than any communication technique. Dr. Sue Johnson, the author of Hold Me Tight, is a pioneering figure in this field. She developed emotionally focused therapy, EFT, a method specifically designed to address emotional needs in couples. EFT isn't just a theoretical model. It's widely practiced around the world and has helped thousands of struggling couples rebuild their emotional bonds. This book condenses her decades of clinical experience into a practical and accessible approach, enabling readers to engage in transformative conversations, even outside the therapist's office. Dr. Sue Johnson is a clinical psychologist and a globally recognized expert on intimate relationships. Her decision to create EFT stemmed from her observation in countless therapy sessions. The core issue in most couples wasn't the surface-level arguments, but the emotional disconnection underneath. When one partner feels, "You don't care about me anymore," or "You won't catch me when I fall," that deep insecurity ripples outward, eventually turning into coldness, conflict, or even separation. That's why she chose to tackle the issue at its root, building a therapeutic method based on attachment theory, with emotional bonding at its core. This video will walk you through the core concepts of Hold Me Tight. We'll begin with a key idea. Love is an emotional bond. Then we'll introduce the 7 essential conversations from the book, not just as communication techniques, but as pathways to rebuild intimacy. This method can help couples escape negative cycles, heal past wounds, and rediscover the feeling that we are each other's safe haven. Whether you're currently in love, going through a rough patch in marriage, or seeking to understand how to build a healthy relationship in the future, Hold Me Tight can serve as a trustworthy beacon. In the upcoming sections, we'll explore the book's central message. What kind of connection is love? How does it shape our emotions and behavior? And why is understanding this bond the most crucial step in repairing a relationship? Returning to the idea of emotional safety, there's a deep and pivotal insight beneath it. Love isn't just romance or passion. It's an attachment bond. This is also the core principle of emotionally focused therapy, EFT. What makes this therapeutic approach so powerful is that it shifts our understanding of relationship dynamics away from surface-level conflicts and into the emotional and relational core. According to the author, adult intimate relationships are strikingly similar to the bonds between children and their caregivers. As children, we needed someone to rely on, a stable and secure refuge when we felt afraid or hurt. As adults, even though we no longer need someone to rock us to sleep or tie our shoelaces, we still crave that same emotional support. This need doesn't disappear with age. It just becomes more complex and subtle in its expression. When the attachment bond is disrupted, problems inevitably arise. The author points out that many couples seem to argue about chores, money, time management, or parenting, but the real trigger isn't the issue itself. It's the emotional fear that lies beneath. For example, one partner may get angry when the other comes home late without calling. But the real feeling behind the anger might be, do you not care about me anymore? Am I no longer important to you? These emotional reactions stem from the fear of losing the bond. We may mask this vulnerability with anger, blame, silence, or withdrawal, but what we truly long for deep inside is reassurance. That the other person is still there, still cares, and can still be depended on. The author explains that when partners feel their emotional connection is weakening, they are not simply dealing with surface-level issues. They are responding to a deeper anxiety. Am I no longer needed? This is why many seemingly trivial arguments become so intense. Our minds may be discussing practical matters, but our hearts are crying out for reassurance about our worth and place in the relationship. It's the unsettling sense of not knowing whether the other person is still our emotional safe haven. The author emphasizes that in every relationship, there are three fundamental emotional needs that repeatedly appear in our interactions. The first is, will you be there when I need you? This isn't just about physical presence, but emotional availability. The second is, am I important to you? We all want to feel that we hold a meaningful place in our partner's heart, not that we are dispensable. The third is, can I rely on you? This concerns trust, commitment, and stability, the foundational elements that determine whether a relationship can endure. Understanding these core needs allows us to reinterpret the meaning of conflict. Arguments are no longer simply about unwashed dishes or childcare responsibilities. They are about the emotional messages underneath. I feel like you don't value me anymore. Or, I sense we are drifting apart. This shift in perspective is crucial. It moves us from blame, why are you like this again, to vulnerability, I'm scared you don't need me anymore. In emotionally focused therapy, EFT, such shifts in perspective are a key starting point. They not only soften communication but also begin to uncover the real emotional needs of both partners. When we stop focusing solely on the surface problem and instead ask, are you acting this way because you feel anxious, hurt, or lonely? We can begin to dismantle seemingly unsolvable conflicts. This mindset also helps us build empathy with our partners. We start to understand that their behavior isn't meant to hurt us, but is an attempt, however clumsy, to express emotional longing. When we can see each other's vulnerability instead of hostility, we begin to repair the emotional bridge between us. To summarize, love is a deep emotional bond, not merely emotional expression or daily interaction. Through the EFT framework, the author shows us that many relationship problems stem from unstable attachment bonds. What we truly long for is someone who can make us feel safe, valued, and dependable. This insight opens the door to a whole new way of understanding relationships. Once we see love as an attachment bond, we begin to recognize that many conflicts aren't due to incompatibility or personality flaws. Rather, they are self-protective patterns that arise when our emotional connection breaks down. These patterns, repeated over time, turn into vicious cycles that damage the relationship. The author calls these patterns demon dialogues, interactions that become like spells, turning two people who once loved each other into guarded strangers. One common pattern is the protest polka, a dynamic of chasing and withdrawing. When one partner senses distance or coldness, they become anxious and try to pull the other closer through words, protests, or emotional intensity. But the other partner, feeling overwhelmed or unsure how to respond, withdraws into silence or avoidance. The more one pursues, the more the other retreats, until both feel lonely despite trying hard. Another pattern is the find the bad guy cycle. Here, both partners blame each other as the source of the problem. What may have started as a small misunderstanding escalates as emotions rise, and both begin to defend themselves and bring up past grievances. Conversations become filled with phrases like, "You always do this," or "If it weren't for you, I wouldn't be upset." The author notes that this is not just about winning arguments. It's about trying to protect one's sense of worth by proving the other is at fault. The third pattern is freeze and flee. In relationships where tension is prolonged or unresolved, partners may stop engaging altogether. They emotionally shut down, becoming distant and numb, even if they no longer fight. On the surface, everything seems calm, but in reality, both have exited the emotional connection. This pattern is particularly dangerous because it erodes the bond until the relationship becomes hollow, a mere formality. The author stresses that these patterns are not caused by personality defects or one partner being more problematic. Rather, they are emotional survival strategies triggered by feelings of threat or loss. These reactions are often shaped by past experiences, ways we learn to protect ourselves from being hurt again. The problem is, when both people are focused on self-protection, the emotional bond they truly need cannot be rebuilt. The first step toward change is to recognize the pattern between you and your partner and to admit that this interaction has become a barrier to closeness. When we begin to see that each argument is a signal from a wounded self crying out, we can start adjusting how we respond. The author once wrote that when a marriage fails, it's not because conflicts increase, but because emotional responsiveness and intimacy decrease. This sentence hits the core of the issue. What truly causes a relationship to fall apart isn't more frequent arguments, but the numbness that sets in when we stop responding to each other's emotions, when love slowly dies out. Recognizing these destructive cycles isn't about blaming anyone. It's about seeing that we actually have a choice. When we can stop repeating the same old scripts and instead begin to understand the emotional messages behind our partner's actions, even those exhausting arguments can become the starting point for rebuilding connection. Once we recognize these harmful patterns, the next step is to identify the type of dance we and our partner are caught in. The author believes that only when we can clearly say, "We're doing the protest polka again," can the relationship break free from endless conflict or silence. Naming the pattern makes it concrete instead of just a tangled mess of emotions. Some people believe that talking less and avoiding fights will make the relationship better. But in reality, when we are unaware of our interactions, we tend to fall back into familiar, unconscious reactions. For example, when someone senses a cold tone from their partner, they might immediately react with anxiety and accusations, while the other person, feeling overwhelmed, withdraws even further. This cycle may have repeated for years without either person ever clearly acknowledging it. The author says that the moment you recognize this pattern, you no longer only see your partner's attack or indifference, you start to see that both of you are being pulled into a familiar rhythm. At that point, you're no longer on opposing sides, but standing together against a harmful dynamic. This shift, from "how could you do this?" to "we fell into it again," is a vital starting point for healing the relationship. The key to this process isn't about determining who's right or wrong, but about building a shared awareness of the pattern. When we can pause in the heat of the moment and say, "I think we're slipping into our old script again," we not only interrupt the cycle but also create a chance to change direction. This kind of awareness isn't about blame. It's a shared language to understand each other's emotional reactions. Many couples, through therapy, discover for the first time that their conflicts follow a recurring pattern, one that's closely linked to their own inner insecurities. Simply recognizing this can already reduce a lot of misunderstanding. You no longer see your partner as someone who's deliberately trying to hurt you, but begin to realize that their withdrawal might come from a fear of conflict, not a lack of care. The author emphasizes that building this awareness takes time, and the courage from both partners to pause and reflect. But when you're both willing to name the 5-step pattern in your relationship, you've already found a starting point for change. Moving from, "you made me feel this way," to, "how did we get here together?" is the first step in reconnecting. And every time you successfully identify and name the pattern together, you create an opportunity to draw closer. The author reminds us that even in moments of confusion or pain, we can still choose to be partners instead of opponents. Once we've identified these interaction patterns, the next step is understanding why they hurt so much. The author believes that these patterns often conceal deeper wounds from our past, experiences of rejection, abandonment, or not being seen. These wounds may have happened long ago, but when our partner unknowingly triggers them, our emotions can ignite like a switch. Many conflicts become intense not because of the actual issue at hand, but because they awaken deeply buried fears. For instance, someone who was often overlooked in the past might feel profoundly unimportant when their partner comes home late without sending a message. That feeling hurts much more than the missing message itself. The author says the key isn't to hide these wounds, but to become aware of them and express them in a gentle and honest way. Instead of lashing out in the heat of conflict, it's better to pause and say, "I got so angry because I felt like I wasn't needed." This kind of honesty gives your partner a chance to understand your emotions, instead of assuming you're just being unreasonable. One couple in therapy discovered that their repeated fights always circled around the same core wound. The wife felt she was always placed last, while the husband felt like nothing he did was ever good enough. One evening, a delayed dinner sparked a huge argument, but deeper conversation revealed it had touched long-standing feelings of, "I don't matter," and "I'll never be enough." Understanding these wounds helps us distinguish between inner pain and deliberate hurt. In a relationship where both partners can treat each other's vulnerability with tenderness, a safe emotional space begins to emerge, one where it feels safe to open up. Saying, "This hurts because I've experienced something similar before," is far more powerful than covering up emotions with criticism or coldness. The author sees this not just as a communication skill, but as a form of courage to face ourselves. Often, we get hurt in relationships not because of what the other person does, but because parts of us are still bleeding from old wounds. If we can recognize this, then arguments are no longer just emotional collisions, they become opportunities to draw closer to each other. Everyone carries emotional wounds, and the deepest form of intimacy is the willingness to let your partner know where those wounds are. Only when we speak honestly about our vulnerabilities and insecurities can we be truly understood, rather than misinterpreted by our surface behaviors. After understanding each other's emotional triggers, learning how to look back together at past conflicts becomes a crucial step in deepening the relationship. This is not about dredging up the past, but a form of healing. The author says that when partners are able to sit down calmly and revisit a past argument with the intention of exploring their true feelings at the time, they begin to unravel the misunderstandings and emotional entanglements that once held them back. It's like rewinding a scene, replaying the moment not to determine who was right or wrong, but to ask each other, "What were you really thinking? What were you feeling?" This kind of dialogue allows hidden emotions beneath the anger or silence to surface, giving each person a chance to be seen in their vulnerability. One couple shared that they had a huge fight over a single sentence. The wife thought she was simply expressing concern, but the husband felt criticized. Later, through calm conversation, they realized the sentence had triggered the husband's long-standing sensitivity to criticism, while the wife just wanted her feelings to be acknowledged. This mutual understanding revealed that both were actually trying to reach out, not attack. The author believes this kind of reflection cultivates emotional sensitivity, what some call emotional literacy. Instead of reacting with anger or defensiveness, we learn to say things like, "I was really afraid you didn't care about me," or "I felt rejected." When our words align more closely with our emotions, the relationship softens and trust begins to form. Because when a relationship can hold space for past conflicts without exploding, both people begin to believe that it is safe. Being able to talk about conflict doesn't mean the relationship is perfect. It means you have the strength to handle imperfection. The author points out that revisiting these moments is also a way of saying to your partner, "I want to understand you," rather than just protect myself. It's an act of reaching out, not waiting for the next argument to test each other. Each time you look back together is an opportunity for connection. Tone, attitude, and patience all matter. Speaking calmly is more disarming than raising your voice. Listening is more powerful than rushing to explain. Over time, you come to realize that the heart of most conflicts isn't the event itself, but whether the emotional experience was seen and understood. When you walk together back to those turbulent moments and view them with empathy, the relationship becomes more resilient, because now you know even when there's friction, you have the ability to heal and reconnect. After being able to calmly revisit past arguments, what truly initiates deep healing is a conversation about needs and emotions. This is not a logical analysis, but a moment of emotional openness, a time to speak the truths we long to say. The author calls this the heart of the entire book, helping couples draw closer by expressing real emotional needs. The most important phrase at this stage is, "I need you." Just 5 simple words, yet often the hardest to say. Many of us grew up being taught to be strong, independent, not too emotional, not too clingy. So even in adult relationships, these old beliefs make us feel ashamed or afraid to express dependence. But the author insists human connection is built on mutual need. Saying "I need you" isn't weakness, it's courage. Only by admitting our need for each other can love become real. This kind of need isn't about control or emotional dependency. It's a healthy, mature bond. In this conversation, partners learn to reach out and speak from the heart. For example, when I feel like you're not responding, I panic inside. I need you by my side. These words are tender, yet full of sincerity. They show the other person that you're not lashing out, you're not playing a game, you're calling for connection. The author believes that when partners can sincerely respond to such needs, by saying things like, "I hear you, and I don't want you to feel alone," the power of that response can dissolve years of misunderstanding and defensiveness. Because this isn't just problem solving, it's emotional rebuilding. Emotional accessibility and responsiveness are the glue that holds long-term relationships together. When we know the other person will respond when we need them, we feel secure. That security makes us more open, more connected, and gives love space to grow. The author says, when love becomes safe, we stop living in fear and defense. We no longer need to protect ourselves with coldness or arguments. This conversation doesn't require perfect words. It calls for authentic presence. Sometimes, just sitting quietly, holding your partner's hand, or softly saying "I'm here" is enough to create deep emotional connection. This connection is the true source of strength between two people, and the pillar that supports them through life's stress and conflict. When partners practice this kind of dialogue again and again, it's like slowly building a strong but gentle bridge between them. A bridge made of past pain, present longing, and future trust. It tells both people, even if we've stumbled, we still have the power to reach for each other and walk toward a deeper intimacy. Finally, the author reminds us that love isn't sustained by perfection, but by presence and response. When we can say "I need you" with honesty, and trust the other person to be there, that's when love gains its truest strength. This is the key to lasting love. And once both partners are able to say "I need you," the relationship begins to transform. Yet even then, old wounds may still linger quietly in the background. That's when the conversation of forgiveness becomes especially important. The author says that forgiveness does not mean forgetting, it means reopening a connection that was shut down by pain. To reach this point, time alone is not enough. It takes genuine dialogue and emotional engagement. When someone has been hurt, betrayed, ignored, or belittled, that pain lodges deeply in the heart. Choosing silence or pretending everything is fine often only deepens the wound. True healing, the author suggests, never comes from simply not thinking about it or saying "it's in the past." Healing starts when the hurt party is given the space to express their pain, when the experience is acknowledged and understood. What the hurt party needs is not explanation, but to be heard. They want to know if the other person truly understands how they felt, abandoned, dismissed, or rejected. If this part is neglected, even if everything seems fine on the surface, emotional distance remains. Only when the hurt person feels a sincere effort from the other can they begin to lower their defenses. And the one who caused the harm must have the courage to face their mistakes, not merely by saying "I'm sorry," but by showing true remorse and taking responsibility. A heartfelt apology, the author says, contains 3 elements: understanding, care, and commitment. Understand why the other person was hurt, care about the impact it had, and promise not to repeat the same behavior. Only this kind of apology can truly be received. Often, people think forgiveness is about letting the other person off the hook. But the author argues that forgiveness is actually for yourself. Only by lowering the walls in our hearts can we reconnect. Otherwise, the unspoken wounds become invisible walls that slowly push people apart. Over time, all that remains is a superficial peace, without emotional closeness. When two people are able to talk about past pain, instead of avoiding or suppressing it, the relationship deepens. Because in doing so, they learn what true understanding and accountability look like. Forgiveness, the author believes, is a choice, a decision to reopen the heart. It's not about erasing memories, but about transforming the experience into strength. These conversations may make us feel vulnerable, and we may want to withdraw. But when both partners choose to stay in that discomfort and see each other's genuine intentions, their connection becomes more authentic, because they realize they can rely on each other not just during happy moments, but also in the hardest ones, when someone is willing to stay and hear the pain to the end. In the end, the author says, relationships without forgiveness build walls of pain that keep people apart. But forgiveness turns those walls into bridges that let two people walk toward each other again. It's not an easy path, but it's a crucial step in bringing love back to the center of life. As couples begin to heal from past wounds, a new level of intimacy becomes possible. And one of the most real and sensitive aspects of that intimacy is sex and physical connection. The author believes that a fulfilling sex life is not merely about technique. It's about emotional safety and closeness. Many couples assume that a drop in sexual desire means the passion is gone or the attraction has faded. But in truth, sexual issues are often signs of emotional disconnection. When someone doesn't feel valued or understood, they may start to withdraw from physical intimacy. Not because they don't want it, but because they're afraid. Getting too close might make them feel vulnerable again, or even rejected. According to the author, true intimacy in sex isn't just about bodies. It's about emotional response and openness. When one partner can gently say, "I want to feel closer to you," instead of hiding their longing behind defensiveness, that honesty can reignite long-lost connection. Sex doesn't begin in the bedroom, it starts in the everyday. Some couples try to reignite passion with novelty, but if the emotional gap remains, such efforts are only temporary. The author believes that rather than chasing newness, it's more important to restore emotional flow. When both people are open emotionally, physical closeness follows naturally. Touch is a form of language. Holding hands, hugging, leaning in. These seemingly simple gestures say, "I'm here, I care." When such actions become effortless and pressure-free, sex becomes not a source of stress, but a way to share emotion. Ultimately, the author says that when emotional safety and responsiveness return, sex is no longer a surface-level act. It becomes a deep confirmation of love. This kind of connection makes love feel whole and draws people even closer in their relationship. Continuing from earlier, once couples reconnect emotionally and physically, the next step in rebuilding the relationship is learning how to maintain this intimacy and warmth over time. The author says that love is not just a feeling in the moment, but a choice we are willing to invest in every day. It needs to be nurtured and sustained by actions. Otherwise, it slowly fades away amid the busyness of daily life. Many relationships lose their warmth over time, not because the feelings have changed, but because the connection between partners gradually weakens. The author suggests establishing small rituals of connection in everyday life, such as a brief greeting each day, a gentle hug, or sharing feelings before sleep. These seemingly trivial acts are actually the nourishment for love. More importantly, maintaining curiosity and attention to each other's world is crucial. When you make an effort to understand what your partner is thinking or worrying about, it's like opening a new window to fresh possibilities. The author points out that this emotional tuning is key to keeping love flowing. Relationships aren't static. They are affected by stress, setbacks, and life's pace. But as long as both partners keep moving closer and responding to each other, love won't just survive. It will grow and thrive. Even a simple "I care about you" can rekindle that pure warmth in ordinary days. Ultimately, the author believes that what sustains love long-term isn't a perfect match, but the willingness to keep investing in the relationship. At its core, the book's main message is that a secure emotional connection is the foundation for a lasting relationship. No matter how many skills or surface-level intimacies exist, if hearts aren't truly connected, love easily wavers in the storms of reality. The solid emotional bond is the true basis for enduring love. The 7 conversations the book mentions aren't quick fixes, nor are they designed to teach how to avoid arguments or create romantic scenes. Rather, they serve as a path toward deep understanding and healing, allowing partners to gradually rediscover each other's hearts. Through these dialogues, we learn how to face pain, express vulnerability, and reach out to say, I need you. Most importantly, these conversations aren't just for couples whose relationships are already good. The author says that even couples in crisis can repair their bonds and rekindle love's warmth if they are willing to rebuild emotional safety. Because love is not an innate gift. It's a skill to be learned. Love doesn't last automatically. It requires care, listening, and courage to open up at critical moments. Through these 7 conversations, we don't just learn how to speak. We learn how to connect with heart, how to truly respond to each other's needs. It's a journey that demands patience, but walking it leads to a love that is deeply profound, stable, and strong. In the end, the author wants to convey that as long as both are willing to open their hearts and work together, any relationship can reconnect, even those once deeply wounded, and love can still bloom again.